Hello, recruit, and welcome to an Astroneer Academy Extra exploring the Sylva Planetary System. In Astroneer Academy 201, we discussed all things related to space travel. Today, we are going to begin a journey through nearly all of the destinations that you can reach with the shuttle, investigating the unique regions, resources, and hazards. Because each of the planets and moons are unique and include several regions to note, this tour of the Sylva Planetary System will be broken into two parts. It would take hours to provide an exhaustive list of everything you can encounter in each region, so instead we will simply hit the highlights. Today, we will explore Sylva, Atrox, and Calidor, with the remaining planets and moon coming next week. Let's get this interplanetary tour underway. At the outset, I want to take a moment to update some of the phrasing we have used to date in Astroneer Academy. Up until now, we have referred to the various regions of each planet as biomes. That is a colloquialism that has been used by astroneers for quite some time, but I am concerned it may cause confusion for newer recruits. You see, the compass identifies these areas as regions, not biomes, so new recruits might not always make the connection that we're talking about various regions on a planet when we say biome. Going forward, we will stick with the training simulation phrasing and refer to these areas as regions instead of biomes. Now, let's investigate all of the planets' regions. The Sylva Planetary System is home to 5 planets and 2 moons, along with a couple of other unique locations that we will discuss further in later courses. Each planet and moon has unique features ranging from the tranquil plains of Sylva to the lush and often bizarre forests of Asanya and on to whatever this region on Atrox is. Regions on each planet can overlap somewhat, creating a unique blend of each region's characteristics, resources, and hazards. For the most part, your adventure will begin on Sylva, typically on or near the orange and green plains region. Some people call that orange color brown, but I don't know, it looks orange to me. Anyway, Sylva is this planetary system's rough equivalent of Earth, just minus all of the oceans and lakes and rivers and water in general. Most of the surface of Sylva is fairly easy to traverse, though there are numerous mountain ranges, deep ravines, and dense forests that can present a challenge. All power sources can be fairly reliable on Sylva, with wind blowing frequently, all solar panels operating at the normal outputs, and an abundance of organic for power generators. For the solar and wind power rating of other planets, please be sure to refer back to the Astropedia Planet section for those details. As we discussed in Astroneer Academy 103, there are several natural resources common to each and every planet and moon in the Sylva Planetary System. Since the Astropedia clearly defines in which regions you can locate other natural resources, we will not be covering that information here. We will, however, be offering pointers on where you can locate resources that can often feel elusive. The plains region of Sylva is home to abundant vegetation, meaning you will likely never run out of organic. You will also occasionally encounter varying sized clay deposits on the plains as well. These clay deposits may be incredibly small and yield only 1 or 2 clay nuggets before they're depleted. If you're lucky, you'll be able to locate one of the larger clay deposits that can easily fill your entire backpack. The purple and blue forests of Sylva can range in size from just a handful of trees all the way to very large areas densely populated by trees and rocks, along with hills that can vary from small, gently rolling hills to very steep areas that can lead into the mountain region. The reward for exploring the forests of Sylva can often be found by the way of fairly generous ammonium deposits, along with debris containing valuable resources, research items and samples, and more. You will often find exocaches hanging out in the forest region as well. The dense trees and rocks can make traveling through a forest a bit of a challenge, especially when traveling through them in a vehicle. You can try to keep your eye out for areas with gaps between the trees that are free from rocks, or you can simply use your terrain tool to remove these obstacles. If you choose the latter, quick, short bursts with your terrain tool set to flatten is the best approach. You do not need to manipulate the terrain much to remove these obstacles, and by using these short bursts of flattening, you won't be creating holes or mounds of soil that can make matters worse. The trees and rocks can also be removed with a drill equipped to a rover. As the drill makes contact, the trees will burst and then vanish, while the rocks will simply cease to exist. Your rover's drill will also destroy research items, some mission-related items, and other decorators you may encounter in the various regions. The mountains of Sylva will vary in size. Some mountains may feel like nothing more than slightly taller than average hills, while other mountain ranges can be more formidable obstacles, with the mountainous areas stretching to the horizon and peaks that soar into the clouds. The mountains can be hazardous, as it can be easy to lose your footing while walking across the ridges, and there are numerous bounce vines present waiting to send you flying. The mountains of Sylva are also where you will first encounter an increased terrain hardness, though it is only terrain hardness 1, so it can be dug up without a drill mod, just at a much slower rate. The crevasses on the surface of Sylva can be particularly difficult to travel across, and they can be fairly dangerous. As with most regions, their intensity will vary. Crevasses may appear as a mere handful of slight dips in the terrain, while others can include deep ravines that can occasionally extend all the way down into the first cave layer. Given the sheer drop-offs often found in the crevasses region, you will want to take care that you do not fall. The crevasses are worth visiting, however, as you will often be able to find moderately sized graphite deposits. Below the surface of every planet and moon lies a vast network of caves that spans several layers. While some resources from the surface will also appear in caves, such as compound or resin, other common resources will only appear within the caves. Of note, quartz and laterite are found almost exclusively within caves, regardless of the planet or moon to which you travel. This is true of the cave regions of the 2 moons as well, though the caves will only extend down for a few levels. The caves of all planets and moons are also home to the Hispine, along with several other hazardous flora, so you will want to exercise caution to ensure you do not have a lethal encounter with any of these. It isn't just the flora that can inflict harm, however. All cave layers feature a varying number of openings that lead to the cave layer directly below. Since it can be quite dark in a cave, it can often be difficult to spot these openings if you aren't paying close attention. Because of this, it's not a bad idea to take along a work light when exploring caves on foot so that you can see where you're going and help you avoid suffering lethal fall damage. As we move further into the depths of Sylva, I want to pause with a spoiler warning. The next region we are going to explore is one that you will most likely want to see for yourself for the first time. So if you have not yet ventured beyond the cave layers, this may be a good time for you to skip ahead to the next chapter in today's course. The Mantle region of Sylva may be the most wonderful, awe-inspiring location that you can visit in the entire planetary system. The terrain shifts from the oranges and browns of the cave layers to deep reds, pinks, and magentas. The air is full of luminescent particulates that seem to dance about in streaks of gold and magenta. All throughout this cathedral-like space are giant purple mushrooms with bright yellow spots on tops, with some of them emitting light from underneath. Massive stalactites drop down from the ceiling, appearing to be reaching downwards to the stalagmites pushing up from the mantle floor. The view can be truly breathtaking. You may actually begin encountering some of the elements of the mantle while still in the final cave layer just above, especially the luminescent particulates and even some of the giant purple mushrooms, though the terrain in that final cave layer will still be predominantly orange or brown. The beauty of the mantle can be deceiving. Nearly every species of hazardous flora you can encounter in other regions are present in the mantle. The unique terrain in the mantle can often limit how far you can see, allowing hazards to hide right around the next corner. Additionally, the pull of gravity decreases the further you descend underground, which can make vehicles difficult to control. You will definitely want to be careful down there. The risks presented by the mantle are far outweighed by its rewards, however. Not only is simply being there an event unto itself, but the mantle is also home to generous deposits of laterite, sphalerite, malachite, and ammonium. On top of that, resource items and samples found in the mantle and the region just below yield far greater research bites than those found on the surface of the planet. The mantle actually extends down one more layer, though the deeper layer is not quite as magical as the upper layer. While it lacks the high ceilings and beautiful scenery, it does include generous deposits of the same resources as the layer above. Just below the mantle region lies the core. Well, the name displayed on the compass indicates that this is the core, but it's actually the outer core. We'll get to that in just a moment. Gravity is almost non-existent in this region, allowing you to cross great distances with a single leap. I suppose this gravity situation is yet another clue that we are inside of a simulation, and a faulty one at that. Physics would dictate that the greater density present starting in the upper mantle would actually cause gravity to increase just a bit as you descend, with it reaching its maximum between the outer core and lower mantle. We know that the density of the planet has increased in these layers because we need a drill to effectively manipulate the terrain. So, physics says gravity should be increasing, not decreasing, but we're in a simulation. It's a little bit broken, so you get to jump around without worrying about fall damage. The core features the hardest terrain on Sylva, requiring at least a drill mod 1 to even be able to dig through it, though a drill mod 2 is required to dig at full speed. The core of almost every planet is also home to generous deposits of graphite, quartz, and clay, and is the only place on any planet where you will find Astroneum. The core also features numerous mysterious large purple pillar-like structures, all of which seem to have their own unique idea of how gravity works. As I mentioned a moment ago, the outer core is not the true center of the planet, but it is really close. These purple pillar structures actually descend deep into the very center of the planet, but we're not going to travel there until Astroneer Academy 206. Now that we have explored Sylva, let's take a look at 2 other planets. Several of the locations we discussed today and next week are host resources you cannot obtain on Sylva, so traveling to them is pretty much required if you wish to continue in your adventure. Beyond the basic need for resources, each planet and moon is worth exploring simply for the sense of discovery and wonder that each can present. We're going to start with the planet closest to the Sun, then work our way out to the farthest reaches of the Sylva Planetary System. Closest to the Sun is Atrox, a radiated, toxic planet with harsh terrain and an abundance of hazardous plants waiting to harm you. Power can be challenging on Atrox as well, given its low sun and wind ratings. You will most likely want to rely on RTGs for power, or you could use generators given the abundance of organic. Atrox is also home to the Honeypot Tappable, which allows you to produce organic for generators quickly if you use a tapper. Atrox does not feature any unique resources to gather from the terrain, but it is the only planet that has 4 atmospheric resources available, and it is the only planet where you can collect helium. Only the bravest Astroneers, or gluttons for punishment, make their permanent bases on Atrox. The harsh terrain on Atrox makes it difficult to travel on a vehicle unless you're prepared to make extensive use of a drill and paver. There really aren't any regions that contain ample, wide open, and relatively flat space. Instead, it is made up predominantly of the Dunes region, though that name is a bit of a misnomer. Instead of the land rising and gently falling away, the dunes are marked by scores of what appears to be small craters. The dunes are home to numerous hazardous flora, including the volatile Attactus, spine lily, and the elegant spewflower. The air in this and many other regions on Atrox is often filled with strange gas bubbles. The Canyons region features steep walls leading down to an undulating floor and is typically filled with fungus-like trees and many dagger roots. Spooky squash will appear in abundance in the canyons during the autumn holiday-themed limited-time events. Numerous Astroneers report that the Canyons region can also be home to mysterious glowing orbs known as LRDs, though there is an element of randomness to these appearances between different instances of the terrain simulation. The Hills region of Atrox proves challenging as well. While they are typically rounded rolling hills, they can become quite steep and can often push up against the boundary between something being a large hill or a small mountain. Once you have entered the Hills region, it can often seem as they go on and on and on. Many vehicles will struggle to navigate this terrain without use of a drill or paver, and some of the steeper regions may prove difficult to traverse on foot. Then there is the mountain region, or what may occasionally be indicated as the error load region. Not only is this region nearly impossible to navigate on foot, it is even next to impossible in a vehicle unless you have a drill and a paver and a lot of soil. Something inexplicable happened here on Atrox. I can only assume that whatever it was that happened here, our current instances of the training simulation are unable to process it, and we're left with this. While resources in the mountain region are incredibly rare, if you can find them at all, it is worth visiting as the debris found in this region can contain QTRTGs and nanocarbon alloy. The caves of Atrox are no less challenging, primarily due to the fact that they are often made up of the hardest terrain in the entire planetary system. You will need at least a drill mod 2 to even think about manipulating this terrain. The caves are also filled with frequent hazardous flora, the surfaces can be difficult to travel across, and the darkness, coupled with the ever-present haze, can make it hard to see. After digging down through several cave layers, you will reach the Mantle region. The strangest of Atrox kicks into high gear here, with bizarre yellow tendrils extending from large tubes or cauldron-like structures. You'll need to descend into the lower mantle layer before you can typically observe any luminescent particulates, with Atrox featuring them in green and gold. The danger this deep down has ramped all the way up, with numerous volatile cacti and dagger roots, along with the noxious spew flower, all lying in wait to take you out. If you continue further down, you will reach the core region, which is home to the watermelons hiding under duck butts that you learned about in an Astroneer Academy Quick Bite. I don't know about you, but I've had just about enough of Atrox for today, so let's move on to one of my two personal favorite planets, Calidor. Calidor is an arid planet full of sparkling sands, cacti, and some truly beautiful scenery. Solar power production is incredibly efficient on Calidor thanks to its high sun rating, which allows solar power producers to output 1.75 times their usual units per second. It is also one of two planets where you will find my favorite hazardous flora, the weezeweed. It's also home to the spiny Attactus and spine lily, so proceed with caution. The dunes region is full of gently rolling sand dunes, though you will want to pay attention to your surroundings lest you fall into one of the many gigantic mouths of the caves. You can usually find generous ammonium deposits on the dunes of Calidor. The dunes may well be the best place to bring a buggy for some fun as well, as they allow you to get massive air, perform nice drifts, and generally pull off some pretty impressive sick stunts. The mountain regions probably should have been labeled as mesas given their near vertical walls and flat tops. Similar to the mountains on Sylva, the terrain in the mountains of Calidor is harder, so you will want to bring along a drill mod if you wish to dig at full speed. Wolframite deposits can be frequently found in the walls of the mountains or the isolated, flatter regions surrounded by the mountains. You may also encounter graphite deposits here from time to time. The flatter areas around the mountains will often be filled with these rather creepy looking trees. Despite their menacing appearance, these trees cannot harm you. The dagger root that will regularly appear in the mountains region will harm you though, so don't get too close to those. The valley region of Calidor is notable for steep walls and narrow ridges. The valley region is fairly typically easy to travel through, though some of the taller ridges may pose a bit of a challenge. The valleys tend to blend in with the surrounding dunes, though they do tend to have a more abrupt elevation change instead of smoother, more gentle hills. The fissure region is one where you will want to pay attention. The terrain here is very rough and pockmarked with numerous daylight holes to the caves below. These holes are typically large enough for an Astroneer to fall through, and may even be large enough for rovers to drop into. Despite the risk, the fissures are another good place to locate graphite when you're on Calidor. The first couple of cave layers in Calidor can sometimes be difficult to differentiate, as the enormous openings from the surface may extend well down into the second layer. If you're lucky, you'll find a nice section of terrain creating the usable ramp down into the caves. If you aren't so lucky, you can still use the flatten mode of your terrain tool to follow the existing terrain to build your own ramp fairly simply. Once you reach the Mantle region, you are treated to some lovely geometric rock and organic structures, along with generous deposits of wolframite, malachite, laterite, and ammonium. The single layer of the core region can often be confused as multiple layers, as it will often have fairly large flat surfaces high above the actual floor of the outer core. It's also home to unique geometric and ring-like rock formations. Unlike other core layers, clay can be quite scarce in the core of Calidor. Today, we have explored the various regions of Sylva, Atrox, and Calidor, identifying their unique characteristics and highlighting points of interest. Later today, in an Astroneer Academy Quick Bite, you will learn how packagers can provide unlimited usage from a single fuel thruster. Next week, we will continue our tour of the regions of the remaining planets and moons in the Sylva Planetary System, but until then, I'm Brandon, reminding you to keep looking to the stars.